What's up, guys? Brett Appley here from DailyFanMMA.com, back with another UFC Quick Picks here on the Mayo Media Network for UFC 262, Oliveira versus Chandler. Should be a great card on Saturday. As always, I'm going to give you my favorite cash game play, tournament play, salary play, and my fade of the week. Before we get into that, make sure you subscribe to the channel here, like the video, comment below who your favorite DraftKings play of the week is. And of course, there's so much more content than my UFC Quick Picks video. Even for MMA, you got the Dogger Pass podcast with Paul Shaughnessy, Cody Saftik. Mad Lab's got his main event breakdown, and so much more, even in other sports. So make sure you check that out. Without further ado, let's get into my cash game play of the week, which is going to be Christos Giagos at 9.1K. All right, Giagos at 9.1K is going to be my cash game play of the week. This is a very interesting slate. There are so many competitive lines. Giagos is actually currently the biggest favorite on the entire card at minus 210. So there are no locks at all, even with Giagos. But what I do like about Giagos is that he is a wrestler, grappler, facing an opponent who has had questionable defensive wrestling in the past. Giagos is facing Sean Soriano here. Soriano fought in the UFC between 2014 2015. He was taken down 3 times, 4 times, 5 times in those 3 fights. He lost all 3 fights, and he was cut from the UFC. 55% takedown defense. He's fought on the regional scene since and come back, but hasn't looked especially changed as a grappler, whereas Giagos has been fighting, better competition. He lands 3.11 takedowns per 15 minutes. Not a great striker, but that's fine. His path to victory is generally takedown based. And in his wins, he typically scores well. 93 points, 92 points, 96 points, and 111 points in his 4 UFC wins. I don't necessarily trust him to go out there and get a finish. He's only plus 280 inside the distance. And for tournaments, this range is tough. There's a lot of fighters in this top range that don't have as much upside as we typically see. However, from a cash game standpoint, I think Giagos is among the most safe fighters on this card, being the biggest favorite, coming from a wrestling base against an opponent who typically struggles with takedowns. So I think Giagos is fairly safe, and I'm going to plug him in to my cash game lineups this weekend at 9.1K. All right, moving on to my tournament play of the week. I'm going to give out Beneil Dariush at 8.6K. Facing Tony Ferguson. This should be one of the best fights on the entire slate. This is just an absolutely brilliant matchup. Dariush is a favorite, minus 175 at 8.6K, so he's a bit of a value on the slate, to be honest, and he's looked just outstanding in his recent fights, coming off 4, 5, 6 victories in a row. Most recently defeated Diego Ferreira, landed 5 takedowns in that fight, and we just saw what Gregor Gillespie had to go through fighting Diego Ferreira. That was a big challenge. Dariush didn't make it look as difficult, which kind of tells you the level of wrestler and grappler he is. A super intelligent guy, a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and a strong wrestler overall as well. Tony Ferguson has that intense style to beat any opponent in the sport, but he's really kind of fallen off a cliff recently, and even his last wins don't age very well. Donald Cerrone, Anthony Pettis. He's coming off a loss to Justin Gaethje and a loss to Charles Oliveira, which are 2 of the best names in the sport. So that's not necessarily the reason I'm writing him off. But Oliveira just absolutely dominated him on the mat, landed 3 takedowns on only 3 attempts, and controlled Ferguson on the mat for nearly 12 minutes. And if you go back through Ferguson's game log, his fight history, he hasn't been the best defensive wrestler throughout his entire career, even going back to that interim championship victory against Kevin Lee, in which he won by submission. He was taken down early, he was mounted early, he was getting beat on, and the ref had to jump in and stop the fight because the round ended. So that doesn't necessarily tell me that, all of a sudden he's a great wrestler. The fight against Charles Oliveira is a major concern, and Dariush has been having success with takedowns in all of his recent wins. 4 takedowns against Thiago Moises, 2 against Drew Dober, 2 against Camacho, 5 against Diego Ferreira on 15 attempts. So I just think Dariush is very likely to land at least a couple takedowns if he wins, potentially more. He's going to rack up control time. He's going to rack up significant strikes, non-significant strikes. And there's even some potential for a finish. He's only plus 290 inside the distance. Ferguson's obviously an excellent tournament option as well. If Ferguson wins this fight, it's probably by knockout, probably testing that durability of Dariush, which haunted him in the past. He had two knockout losses in the span of 3 fights, and he's won 6 in a row since. But there's always in the back of my mind a concern that someone's going to put him out again. I do think Ferguson can hurt him, but ultimately I just think Dariush is going to go to his wrestling here. He's a better wrestler. He should be able to land takedowns, control Ferguson, and for 8.6K, there's plenty of upside on this price. In his last wins, Dariush has scored 95, 118, 99, 107, 105, and 106. So he's scoring very, very well based on the pace of this fight, based on the style of this fight, and the style of Dariush's game in this matchup. I think he has a lot of upside, and he's one of my favorite tournament plays of the week there at 8.6K. All right, moving on to my salary play of the week. I don't know if I mentioned this at the start, but there are so many good values below the mid-range. I wouldn't be surprised if 5, 6 plus underdogs win on this slate, and you can leave a lot of salary on the table for that reason. I'm going to roll with Andrea Lee, who's 7K, so the second cheapest fighter on the entire slate. But she is only plus 105 to win, I believe, against Antonina Shevchenko, which is... she should be priced around 8K on a different slate, theoretically. You're getting an absolutely ton of value on Andrea Lee at this price. Antonina Shevchenko at 9.2K is extremely overpriced. And I don't love Andrea Lee, but I do like that she's an active fighter and she has grappling upside in this matchup. Her kind of fault has been actually defending takedowns, and she's coming off a 3-fight losing streak in which she gave up 2 takedowns to Calderwood, 2 takedowns to Lauren Murphy, and 4 takedowns to Roxanne Modafferi. That's a concern here. However, Antonina Shevchenko defends takedowns at 56%. It's also been a big issue for her. She gave up 5 takedowns to Roxanne Modafferi, 3 takedowns to Katlyn Chookagian, who's not really known as a wrestler. And yeah, she looked good offensively against Ariane Lipski in her last fight, but I kind of think this fight's going to be won or lost by who's able to land takedowns. Am I super confident that Andrea Lee beats her to the punch? Not necessarily, but for 7K, I'm certainly willing to take the chance on it. Andrea Lee also lands 5.58 significant strikes per minute. She's a very strong judo player, a very strong submission grappler. If Andrea Lee does get the fight to the ground, I think she has control upside, potentially even some submission upside as well. For 7K, I'm not even looking for a 100-point score. She scored 88, 78, 70 points in her 3 decision wins, but that didn't even come with many takedowns. So if she beats Shevchenko, I do think crossing the 80-point mark is pretty likely. And again, we're just talking about values here. If you want to load up on someone like Yago, so you're trying to play Dariush or Charles Oliveira, or even Gina Mazzani up there at 9.3K, you got to save salary somewhere. I think Andrea Lee's going to be fairly popular, but she is just an excellent value at plus 105 to win with grappling upside. She's going to be my salary play of the week at 7K. And finally, my fade of the week, another female fight here. It's going to be Katlyn Chookagian at 8.8K. Probably not a big surprise to many of you. Chookagian is only minus 135 to beat Viviane Araújo. Araújo plus 115 there. So Chookagian very overpriced at 8.8K, and she just doesn't score well on DraftKings almost ever. She has one excellent performance in which she landed 3 takedowns against Antonina Shevchenko. Dominated her on the mat, landed 119 significant strikes, but Araújo is a better grappler and probably a better wrestler than Chookagian. I would be very surprised if Chookagian dominated on the mat here. Chookagian also only averages 0.27 takedowns per 15 minutes. That was the only fight in her entire career in which she had landed takedowns, so I don't think it's likely that she out-wrestles Araújo here, who's defending takedowns at 94%. Chookagian might be able to beat Araújo on the feet, might be able to win this fight down the stretch if Araújo gets tired, but I don't think that's going to score well enough for 8.8K. Chookagian's put up 58, 66, 68, points in her 3 wins outside of Shevchenko. That seems like a more fair mark. At 8.8K, I'd be looking for 95 to 100 points. There's just no way that I'm playing her at this price on this slate. And once again, Araujo is among the better values on the slate at 7.4K. She's almost interchangeable with Andrea Lee. Am I super confident she's going to win? Not really, but she's only plus 115 to win at 7.4K. She does have grappling upside, averages 2.33 takedowns per 15 minutes, just took down Modafferi 4 times, and Chookagian only defends takedowns at 51%. Araujo put up 93 points in her last UFC victory, so there you go, 7.4K, it's another salary option for you. Not necessarily going to load up on any one of these fighters, but there are a lot of options. Spread your constructions out below the mid-range for sure, and don't be surprised if there's several underdogs that win on this slate. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this week's UFC Quick Picks. Thank you so much for the support. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at BrettAppley, TTPP, dailyfanmma.com for all your DraftKings breakdowns needs. Got full breakdowns for every single fight on the slate. We got projections, ownership, rankings. Multiple bets are live for this weekend as well. That's dailyfanmma.com. Thanks again. Take care. Stay safe. Best of luck in your contests. Talk to you soon. Peace.